In this video, what we're going to be doing is fixing our little knife issue that was presented in the previous video. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that. So as you can see here on the left side of the client and the leg, there is no knife, but when I knife, then snaps back. And same thing when the server initially does his knife, the knife just kind of teleports there and then goes to his side, and then everything's working fine. I have to increase the range of the knife because that's kind of close. And if we look here, knife is attached to his back, but the server doesn't see the knife anywhere on here. And if we go and actually find it, so I'm going to set the number of players to 1 and set the net mode to as client and go to the viewport so that way we can kind of see everything likewise. Press F8 to go out. Here we have our BP knife, and it's showing that it's spawning over here, like so. Go to details. It's nearly in the center of the world. But it's not where it's supposed to be. And if I go to possess and a knife, then press F8 again, reward outliner, it is now under our Nazi zombie character, and it is on our hip. That's where it's supposed to be. So that's kind of the issue there. Ignore those. So if we come over to our third person animation blueprint, we should have some events in the event graph. So knife animation end. What this is doing is we get the knife, yada yada yada. This is at the end of the animation. At the end here, we attach it to our third person mesh at a socket called knife holster. So this is what we want to do when we spawn it. So what we're going to do here, go to our Nazi zombie character.cpp and go to begin play. And as you can see, we're spawning the knife. Again, this is on the server. And then we're attaching it only to the first person kind of guy there, to the knife holster socket. That's not quite correct. So we might have to end up making an onRep for this to be set up right, but for now we're just gonna get it try to get it somewhat, I guess, working cleanly. What we're gonna do here is let's go to our character base.cpp so we'll have a good reference. Go to begin play. So what we do is we spawn the weapon. From there, current weapon is replicated. So that's going to cause onRep attach weapon to fire. We're just calling it because we're on the server. We have to call it if we want it to fire. When it fires, confirm that it's valid. We call weapon is now in hand, which essentially just hides and unhides it. But the key thing is it attaches it to the course, just to the correct, what do you call it? The correct portion on the player. So if they're the first person, it attaches it to the first person mesh in the hand. If it's third person, goes to the third person based off of whether or not they are locally controlled. That's kind of what we're going to do. So let's go to our Nazi zombie character. We are replicating our knife. So let's go to our header and find where we have our knife right here. So I'm going to create a U function, void onRep score knife attached, like so. I'm going to generate the implementation. Go ahead and minimize our replication and interactions. So back to our non-zombie character.h, we're going to set this to be replicated using set that equal to onRep underscore knife attached. So that way this will fire when knife changes. So now what we're going to do, knife is already being changed. What we want to do is actually set it. So I want to just call it onRep underscore knife attached. We're on the server. This is in begin play, by the way. So that way this fires on the server. And then in here, we're going to do everything. So I'm going to copy this little section here where we attach it, move it down to our on rep. I'm going to change it a bit. I'm going to do if knife just to confirm it's valid. So if the knife is valid, and if we are locally controlled, we attach it to our hands in the first person. Otherwise, we're going to copy this and do the same thing again, but we're going to change the first person mesh to just simply get mesh and attach it to our knife holster. So now, for example, I cannot remember if our first person mesh has a socket called that, so I'm going to check real quick in our skeleton. What knife? So we have our S_knife holster, which is directly behind us, that's good. Okay, so that's fine. Whoops. Okay, so let's, I'm gonna go ahead and do a compile and step through this real quick. Close down the editor. Okay, so when our character spawns, we spawn a knife. It's set up as an on rep, so it calls our on rep knife attached. If the knife is valid, we check if we're locally controlled. If it is, we attach it to our first person meshes socket there. Otherwise, we attach it to our third person meshes socket. So that should hopefully be replicated and attaching, properly across all clients. I hope. Guess the only way to find out is just to try it. One day. There we go. Okay. Just gonna look, press F8, center back. I'm actually going to go test normally, so set it as listen server to clients. There, the knife is on the hip, and the knife is on the hip on both. So that's what we want. Knife works just fine on client. Does not quite work right on the server. So I want to take a quick look at that and see what might be the cause there. Let's see, our knife.cpp. I don't think anything's really controlled in here for that though. So on knife, not doing any attaching. Okay, so that'll be all controlled inside of the blueprint. Third person mission blueprint. Everything seems to be good. Let's see, why wouldn't it want to attach to the hands from the start though? That is the question I'm not quite sure on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print out a log. Print string, just see what the odds are that it actually fires. And as well as how many times it fires, because it should just fire twice. Wait for the zombies to spawn. Oops, I just realized I'm doing it on the client. We have it. Client 0. This one's firing on the server. Okay, yeah, I'm just being stupid. That seems like another bug has been brought about, but it's very random. So we have some more issues to work out. So that's running on the server. That's running on the client. So it is firing. We triple check that it ran the first time, which was the actual issue. Attached by knife. It's firing from the very first time, which is kind of strange. I guess that was kind of like the other issue, which I cannot get to repeat on the server where the knife was in the middle of the screen. But I can here. Or is it only the secondary knife that's causing the issue on the client now? That might end up being the case. So knife once. Okay, so it's a secondary knife. Nope, it seems like it's just a mixture. So we have some issues there to fix. Confirm that it wasn't the print string for whatever reason causing it. Okay, so it's not. So we have that issue there to fix, as well as the issue on the server there. So the server issue is when we do our very first knife on the server, the knife just kind of spawns in front of the character. Well, it teleports there and doesn't do anything else until the second knife, in which case it works properly. Client has a weird issue where the knife just kind of was sitting in front of him and it's random. It's not every single knife that it does that. So that's obviously not the intended functionality of it. And something we did recently is what's actually causing that. So it might be in the first person arms real quick. I want to double check. Knife animation start. So here's where we do all that kind of stuff. So when the animation ends, we're attaching it to the knife socket as well. That's not quite correct. So I'm going to do one quick test. I'm going to copy s_knife holster and paste that in to the socket name for our knife animation end and just double check. So it's every time for the secondary knife. And it's still random. So that didn't fix it. Anyhow, we're going to be working on these, trying to get this good to go, so we have to fix those. So, as always, if you want to help support me, a link to my Patreon's in the description. If you have any questions or anything like that, there's a link to my Discord server as well in the description with sections that correspond dedicated to this tutorial series. Or really, just if you have any questions in general regarding game development, either I or someone else can try to help you out. So, as always, I will see you in the next one.